we've been watching this, obviously, along with you, Diana and Stephen, and I think what I got out of it, it was such a celebration of life, which I really appreciated, but it was also a call for action right along the way, where people would celebrate her life, they would talk about her life, the contributions that she made, the changes in the world that she made by that act some 50 years ago, but also it's a call for action. Okay, she has challenged each and every one of us as an individual to stand up for what we believe in.
And it's a challenge, Robbie, we should indeed step up to.
Okay. You know, also, I wrote down a couple of the interesting things that I found. They were talking about the pilot that was leaving Montgomery with the family and with the body of Rosa Parks. The pilot is black, and he dipped his wings of the plane to say goodbye to Montgomery. I found that, you know, just a very interesting story.
Basket once again is loaded into that caisson for the trip to Woodlawn. We can hear the crowd chanting. Right now
Rosa.
they're being a bit more quiet. Rosa. They've been chanting Rosa, Rosa, Rosa.
Don't you wonder what she would think of all this? I think she would have enjoyed being there. I'm not sure she would have enjoyed all of this being for her.
Yeah, so many of the family members we've spoken to over this last week, every single one of them, there's not a single exception, talks about how she would be somewhat embarrassed by all the attention, that she just really never demanded the attention of herself, and in fact, as often as she could, avoided it unless there was some specific reason to not avoid it. In other words, attending some event that would forward the cause she started 50 years ago. She was more than happy to attend, but she never wanted the fuss.
Oh, she may have been embarrassed by all the attention because she was a humble woman, but God knows she would have enjoyed the singing and the praises from every minister there. The young people speaking, because of course that was she was so much about that in her foundation today. Just the young people embracing the legacy of Rosa Parks, what she meant, what it stands for, and what their mission is to carry on.
You know, I think she also would have enjoyed listening to her schoolmate, 94-year-old Johnny Carr. Didn't you get a kick out of her? They both attended private school together in Montgomery, and she said, boy, nothing started the fire like Rosa Parks started that fire, and it's still burning. I love listening to her.
Oh, she ignited everyone. She started out, my Lord, what a celebration. My Lord, what a celebration. And she kept saying, I'm going to wrap it up, but of course then she would go on, and we enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And you know what's impressive is the diversity of speakers, which was symbolic of the diversity of America, from the new Hispanic mayor of Los Angeles, who traveled all the way across the country, to, as you mentioned, Robbie, her childhood friend, Dr. Johnny Carr, to Bill Ford Jr., the CEO of a major American corporation, Congressman John Dingell, all the ministers. I mean, what diversity, and all of them had important messages to get out.
And again, Governor Jennifer Granholm, I thought she gave a great speech. And,
yes, she did.
And kind of motivated everybody to take some action and to carry the message on.
Well, the thing we noticed, Robbie, was with the speakers that you could almost see the speaker get up and look at the speaker before him or her and say, okay, I'll see if I can top that.
Right.
There's a little one-upsmanship on just the delivery styles. I mean, obviously the messages have been crafted long ago from the hearts of these speakers. But, you know, you get up there in front of a crowd like this, and each speaker raised the bar for the next one.
I certainly enjoyed Governor Granholm's remarks. Governor Granholm, to me, goes right to the people. You know, in particular, when she said, I'm not talking to people with a title. I'm not talking to the senators. I'm talking to the janitors. I'm not talking to the people who already had their seat inside, but the people who are still standing outside and have been there all night and who may not even get inside. If that didn't hit home, because that's what Rosa Parks was all about, the little man.
We're looking at some of the pictures we'll be seeing over the next 45 minutes, an hour or so, as this procession makes its way to Woodlawn Cemetery. We have Chopper 7 up, obviously. We will have cameras along the route as we travel with the caisson and the funeral procession to Woodlawn this evening. I don't think anybody planned on this happening in the dark, but that is the way it is going to happen. So we will do our best to show you the pictures.
Well, and many people have been there for over 12 hours.
Yes.
Oh,
you know,
yes.
you talked to some people who'd been there since early this morning, 4 and 5 a.m.
Now, perhaps the only good thing about having run so long is a lot of people in the audience did leave throughout the afternoon, leaving seats that were available for the people standing outside. So the people who thought maybe they were going to get shut out of the funeral inside were allowed, and the Greater Grace Temple was very gracious in moving those people into empty seats. So by the end of the day, there were far fewer people standing outside than there were in the early parts of the day.
And
well,
Robbie,
you know, now that you bring that up, Stephen, obviously no one dreamed this might be a 6-hour-plus event just to get to this point in the day. Logistically, how has this adjusted some of the plans?
Well, I think it adjusted. I was talking to some of the police officers out here who, I don't know, about 3:30 were amazed that it was going that long. So I can imagine that going to 6 o'clock and beyond. And remember, the city of Detroit is, I assume, going to pick up the tab for most of the police work on this. When the mayor, according to, I think it was Judge Damon Keith, thanked the mayor for basically offering whatever was needed to make this funeral happen today. So, you know, there will obviously be some sort of overtime bill, but this is one of those cases, I'm not sure a lot of people are going to begrudge it.
Right, and you never know what major corporations may kick in to help defray some of those costs. We certainly saw major corporations from GM and Ford represented here.
Yes.
And many of these people are very thankful for the legacy of Rosa Parks. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. But right now, it's quite a celebration.
And Robbie, what did you think of Reverend Charles Adams saying, "Oh, thank you," in maybe 20 different languages?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that something?
Very, very
we
impressive.
clapped. I thought we were going to shout out here, and especially when it got to the end.
That was very, very impressive. You know, and I think for a lot of people, have you ever witnessed a 6-hour funeral? You know, actually with the whole festivities going on now for like 7 and 8 hours, with people starting to arrive and people filing by the casket to pay their last respects, and then the somber and yet elegant closing of the casket. It was quite an event, I think, for all of us to witness, even those who witnessed it by TV.
Well, for the first 4 hours, Bishop Ellis kept reminding people to keep their remarks brief.
And it worked for about 2 speakers.
Yeah.
After a while, then even he gave up, and it just kind of let it take its course.
And many pillars in the community that we did not hear from there publicly today, but the First Lady of Politics, Mother Irma Henderson. I spoke with her last night by phone, and of course she goes way back with Rosa Parks, way back before she even thought of going into politics. And she said, Diana, what I learned from Rosa Parks was, she said, if you can walk the walk and talk the talk, you can carry out a mission you set for yourself.
And so many of the speakers today, that was the point, is that a lot of people talk the talk, but Rosa Parks really is that one person in history that without a doubt really walked the walk. And she took action on what she saw was the injustice of the time and made her stand, and that's why we're all here today.
You know, too, started off on an elegant, kind of a fun note, in that German singer who sang the Lord's Prayer.
Yes.
Oh my! And then to have everyone in the congregation just stand up and applaud, that was very, very special. And what a great voice she had.
And I was so touched by Reverend Bernice King when she shared her mother's thoughts. And of course, we know that Coretta Scott King suffered a major stroke, and she's on the road to recovery. But for Bernice King to talk about Elaine Steele and being a caregiver and what it takes to be a caregiver, something Elaine Steele has been about for some 15, 20 years, that Bernice King just happened to her for maybe 3 or 4 months, as with myself recently with my mother. And you're busy and you're about your schedule, and when that comes on you, when you are caregiving and doing something that you are not accustomed to doing on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, God bless the caregivers. And Elaine Steele deserves the praise that she received tonight, and it was just a nice touch for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter to give her that.
You can see the case on here, very, very close to beginning its journey, its 10-mile journey to Woodlawn Cemetery, I'm sorry. And you see the men on the phone, and I think what they're trying to do is coordinate this whole thing. It's a very large entourage of buses. In fact, I believe we have something in the neighborhood of 10 DOT buses that are driven by special drivers. They belong to a special color guard unit of the DOT, and they have very impressive uniforms, and they apparently do this kind of thing on some sort of regular basis, but today obviously really called into duty with something in the neighborhood of 10 buses. We have countless stretch limousines, virtually all of them white, ready to line up. We have some of the antique hearses that Swanson has provided for this that will also be in the procession. So they've got to coordinate all of these people, get all of the family members. As you can see, that line of limousines behind the hearse there. They will coordinate all of these people and try to get them on the road here very shortly for the very slow. And I'm interested to find out if this is going to be, in the tone of the day, somewhat of a joyous procession to the cemetery, again, 10 miles away.
Which brings to mind these horses, Stephen. They've been standing there for many hours. Has someone been able to give them food and water?
Well, we've seen occasional pictures of the horses standing very patiently. By the way, that's Doc and Cody you're looking at there. Two
and I'm sure they have caregivers,
horses.
so they're taken care of.
They were brought out, Frank and Robbie, about 2 o'clock. I think we saw them brought under the portico there, in anticipation of a procession that I'm sure people thought would take place sooner.
Right.
So they have been standing quite patiently for 4 or 5 hours in that one spot.
Well, they're going to get their picture taken a lot, and they are going to be a part of this history as well. One other observation, I think for a lot of young people, this may have been a good history lesson in that they knew about Rosa Parks, they knew about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but this put it together. I mean, because of Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. really came to prominence and stepped forward. And they may not have made that connection before.
And you have a good point, Robbie. And one thing that stuck out in my mind was Robert Fricano, the Wayne County executive, when he said that he did a Google search on Rosa Parks and there were 21 million hits. That says alone just how many people have checked out her name over the last several days.
Just all the places you'll find her mentioned on a page here, a page there. There's so many websites. I know during this last week we've done a lot of research also, and that's the first thing I do is hit the Google search engine and find out. And I was just amazed at how much has been written about her, and also how consistent it is. You search anybody else's name, you're going to find the pros and the cons. You're going to find the pluses and the minuses. You search Rosa Parks' name and you find one thing. You find a very consistent history of positives with her. And you mentioned a little while ago that you've never seen a funeral go quite this long, but one reason perhaps is that every speaker here had no choice but to say nice things. There was nothing else to have been said. Nobody had a political agenda they had to either get in or had to avoid.
Right.
What you said was what you said.
And you asked me earlier if she had ever considered running for a public office, and I said, not to my knowledge. And when I started to reflect on that, that probably would have been a mistake in terms of her popularity. The fact that she stayed out of politics as an elected official, people had nothing but nice things to say about Rosa Parks. I've never heard anyone say anything that wasn't nice about Mrs. Rosa Parks.
And of course, what is another consistent thing that is so near and dear to Rosa Parks' heart, whenever you hear or read about Rosa Parks, it's about the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development. I mean, this was something that was incorporated in 1987, 1 year actually before she retired from working with Congressman John Conyers. And this is dedicated to helping Detroit young people and initiating them into the struggle for civil rights. And when I heard that $1.5 million thus far has been able to supply 750 young people to go on and further their education. I mean, that's hallelujah, folks. That's hallelujah.
Well, Jesse Jackson talking to the driver of the Caisson. I'm wondering what he's asking. Maybe okay. So are we leaving?
When does this go forward?
Hey, you know, Chuck. One thing that struck me, Chuck, about Jackson's remarks. He wanted to clear up one of many urban legends, several that I've heard in the last few days, about why Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. The one that he spoke to was the fact that she was tired and her feet hurt. It had been a long day at work, and she was just too tired to stand up. Talk for a minute about some of the other misconceptions that have been associated with that day.
Yeah, she was tired, all right.
Well, she was probably tired, but she was also very, very motivated. But you're right, that was probably the biggest misconception, is that people just felt the reason she didn't get up was because she was tired. But it was much, much more than that. She was tired of being mistreated.
Yes.
And there's a difference between being physically tired and being tired of the discrimination that she and other African Americans had to endure each day of their life, and the humiliation that went through it. And as someone mentioned earlier, I think it was President Clinton, in his remarks, he said, this happened in the South, in which the tradition is for men to be able to give up their seat for women. That's a Southern tradition for any of us who lived in the South. And Frank, you know, you and I both lived in Nashville for a while, so we know about Southern tradition, and that is very much a Southern tradition. I guess she just felt like it and said, enough is enough.
She said, I'm so tired. It's not about my feet being tired. I mean, we all have tired feet every day. My feet are tired right now. It was about her mind being tired. It was about being tired of the injustices. And that's why she sat down, and that's why she wanted that cleared up, because that was not so.
Right. Another widely circulated story, Chuck, is that she was chosen by someone to try to force this issue and bring something to a head.
Well, you're right, and I was just getting ready to mention that, is the fact that, or that she was used, and I think neither one was the case, is that Rosa Parks made that decision on her own. Once she made that decision, E.D. Nixon, who at that time was president of the Montgomery NAACP and also was a Pullman porter, when he realized it was Rosa Parks, he said, there is no one in our community more impeccable with a better reputation. This is someone worth fighting for. This is the person that we galvanize our community over. And also, stop and think, they had been having these little strategy sessions for years. But E.D. Nixon, by being a Pullman porter, he got to travel all across the country, unlike some people who had to stay in the South and never left their town. And so he got to go to northern cities, and he saw integration going on, and he said to himself, wait a minute, something's wrong here in Montgomery, that it's not being done the same way we may see it done in Kansas City, Missouri, or when New York City, when the train pulls in that way. And so that was also a motivation there. So they all worked together to be able to change this.
And I wanted to clarify, too, with Frank, I did look up in my notes so that we could get the proper thing out there that was said as far as the misconception. One legend had it that she was a cleaning woman with bad feet who was too tired to drag herself to the rear of the bus. Another had it that she was a plant, as Chuck just said, by the NAACP. But the truth of the matter, as she later explained, was she was really tired of being humiliated.
I talked to Theodora Smiley Lacey in Washington, and it turned out she was a child in Montgomery, and she was into youth groups of the NAACP and knew Rosa Parks personally. And she said they all knew she was going to do it, they just didn't know when.
Right.
I mean, she talked about it and then it just happened. We're watching, by the way, the Caisson finally leaving here from the Greater Grace Temple for its final trip, the 10 miles to Woodlawn Cemetery.
You know, while we're talking about this, let's go on and talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, because yeah, it had an effect financially on the buses, it had an effect on the people who couldn't get to work, but it also had an effect on the African Americans who could not use the bus for transportation. Yeah,
definitely. We'll get to that in a second, Robbie. We're going to cut to Kim Craig right now because this Caisson is now coming her way. Kim?
Well, Stephen, Diana, Robbie, right, there are hundreds and hundreds of people out here who have come to honor Rosa Parks as the procession begins here. The Mountain Patrol is coming down here also. And so many people have just come to just pay their respects to such a wonderful, wonderful woman. And, you know, Rosa Parks is probably somewhere saying, what's with all the fuss? And I'm sure these people out here are just saying there's not enough that they could do to say thank you to such a wonderful woman. We're just outside Greater Grace Church here, where you see the police officers. You see this mounted unit behind them. And Rosa Parks and her family will soon be following behind them. They're going to be going east on 7 Mile here. There are hundreds and hundreds and quite possibly thousands of people out here that I just can't see because it is dark out here. The street lights are on, but there are probably more police, red and blue flashlights on their vehicles and on their motorcycles, and it's just an amazing sight out here. People are so excited to see this come by, and again, everyone is treating this as such an honor and such a privilege. There are people in the median here who have candles that they have lit, and here, just an amazing time for everyone to be here. And here come the white horses, and you can hear the crowd. What an incredible thank you to Rosa Parks. Everyone's saying, we love you, Rosa. We love you, Rosa. So many people have come out here, and look at the people just following behind. People have been on their feet for hours and hours out here, and we have been standing here right with them because there is not enough that we could do for such a wonderful woman. Let me ask you, ma'am, as we continue to look at the crowd as they proceed down, what made you decide to come down here?
Because this is such a historical event, and we wanted to show our students at Charles H. Wright the significance of carrying on a legacy, and so we just thought it was very important to bring the students.
Just out here. These children know that they are a part of history, but it's continuing on to this day right now. So many people have been inside the church, have come out to see the procession here. Family leaving, friends leaving, loved ones leaving. Let me ask you, ma'am, you were inside the church as we continue to look over there. What was it like inside there? I can't imagine.
It was just awesome. It was a one-in-a-lifetime come true. All the dignitaries that were there, just all of the people, just all of the outpouring in respect for Rosa Parks. It was just awesome. All the songs, the tributes, and even former President Clinton was there. It was just truly awesome.
What do you hope? So many of these young people, you see people of all ages, and Mike, if you could turn around and pan right as we continue to talk, there are people who are following the procession on foot. These are people who have literally been on their feet for hours and hours, who are following that procession on foot, paying honor to Rosa Parks. What do you hope some of these children that we've seen out here come away with?
I'm just hoping that these children that leave here on today will just have the respect and the dignity for who Rosa Parks was, what she stood for. You know, she went through a lot just so that we could be who we are today, so that we could be the mayors of cities, so that we can be the governors, so that we can be entrepreneurs, so that they will have the respect and dignity and get out to vote.
Absolutely true. Thank you so much, Ms. McClendon. And let me talk to you, ma'am. You understand brought a class down here also?
Well, I brought my children and some of their classmates down.
What was the experience like? You guys didn't come till like 5 o'clock, and you were still able to get inside the church, I understand.
It was by the grace of God we got in that church. It was, you know, just the doors opened and in we went, and, you know, we... the girls are in their gym clothes, and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I mean, they just...
Are these your daughters here?
Yeah, this is my daughter, and this is my son.
Hi. What was it like inside there as we continue to watch the procession here? What was it like being in there during the services for Rosa Parks?
It was amazing. It was like It was more than what I could imagine.
I can only imagine. You know, and let me ask you, you mentioned your brother back here. Well, first of all, what's your name and how old are you?
I'm Colin, I'm 13.
What an experience for you guys out here. You were watching history just unfolding, and what was it like inside the church? You guys were able to go on because a lot of people, I understand, have been coming, were going in and out of the church. It was a very long service, but I can't imagine. What did it leave you feeling like in your heart?
Just mind-boggling. Just what this lady's done for everybody. It just leaves you at all.
Wonderful experience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So many people have come down here, and let me ask you, what's your name?
Douglas.
Douglas, and how old are you, Douglas?
13.
Let me ask you, 13. You're only 13. A lot of 13-year-olds might be sitting home tonight, but you're out here. How long have you been out here, and why'd you decide to come down here?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. You've been down here since 4 o'clock. Wow. So what made you decide to come down here? Who did you come down here with?
I came with my mom.
Okay. And what made you decide to come down?
I just wanted
to be a part of it all?
Yeah.
Let me talk to Mom here. Mom, what a fabulous experience for your children, an opportunity for them.
Right. I wanted to come off work and come down and get my son just to share this experience with him. This is a memorable experience, and we're glad to be able to come down here and see her homecoming.
Awesome. And sir, let me ask you, in the pinstripe suit, why don't you come on down here? Let me ask you, what has this been like for you out here? What made you decide to come down here and honor Rosa Parks?
It made me decide to come. I knew I was gonna be like a part of history. And when you're inside, there's like the emotions were like it's all mixed emotions because such great speakers and like you didn't know like that many people want to be there, like Farrakhan and Sharp, and it was really amazing. And I really enjoyed coming.
A wonderful experience for so many people. And you know, if I'm gonna ask Mike to pan over a little bit here, just so you can see the crowd. There are vehicles on both sides of this drive here, and there are people over here. And once that limo moves out of the way, you can see on the horizon over there the procession that is leading. The procession is going to take at least a couple hours. Somebody told me earlier that it's going to probably take about 2 hours for those horses to make it to Woodlawn Cemetery. That's it from outside Greater Grace Church. Back to you guys.
I mean, with the figures we got on that, it's 10 miles. We're told that Doc and Cody, the horses, could move at about 4 miles an hour. That's kind of a top speed. So that would be about the fastest they could get there if they just took off and moved would be 40 minutes. And they're obviously not moving. You can see them stop quite regularly for whatever reasons. I think they're trying to coordinate the entire caravan on its way to the cemetery.
And I especially enjoyed Kim interviewing the young people.
Oh, it's great.
Because that's what we've been talking about, Chuck and I sitting here, as well as Stephen, about the impact of this day on the young people of Detroit. And in particular, there's a 13-year-old fella out there today. His name is Mika Jones, a 13-year-old Boy Scout, and he had the privilege today to help unload Rosa Parks' casket at the church. And I'd like to quote him. He said, "If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to go to the school that I go to or do the things I do now." That's from the mouth of a 13-year-old Boy Scout, and that was on his honor.
And again, the call for all of those children today was a fairly consistent theme is, you know, it's great we've come this far. Now the key is that other people, there's somebody out there is going to be the next Rosa Parks, the next one to take a stand where they see injustice. So, you know, it's going to likely be somebody with the youth and the promise that they can see from somebody like this. I mean, obviously, any of us can make that stand now, and we should. But, you know, if you just play the odds, it's going to be the youth that we have right now that are going to be the ones that will be setting the stage for their children.
And keep in mind that it's not what's on the outside, because she was a very meek, small woman. It's what's on the inside.
Absolutely. And the youth were well represented here. At one point, we thought that Mayor Kilpatrick was the youngest speaker until the young man came up from the Rosa Parks Institute to top that and say that he was the youngest speaker. And both of them were eloquent, and both of them talked about the importance of youth, not only in this city, but across America, and that youth are prepared to keep her dream alive.
And as Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick said, as you just quoted him as well, she is an example for all people. For one, he said, I would not be standing here, but for her sitting down and standing up at the same time. So the words of Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick.
Yeah, so it's interesting how many times we heard the lines as she sat down so America could turn around. she made a stand by sitting down. And that was a very consistent theme, the sitting down and standing and making a stand. So however you want to say it, the message is clear. You got to make a stand at some point.
And we saw some interesting comparisons as well as some short phrases that really captured her. Senator Carl Levin obviously saying something very simple but very eloquent. Great things come in small packages, which certainly fit Rosa Parks. Congressman John Dingell drawing a comparison between two seamstresses, Betsy Ross and Rosa Parks, going back to what their original trade was, but how they used that trade to elevate themselves to greatness in a very simplistic sort of way. And then I thought the person, you know, we were kidding among ourselves and we said, okay, who was the best? And that reminded me, that's sort of like your grandmother telling you to go out to the orchard and pick out the best apple. Well, there's no way to be able to really do that. But some of the most memorable, Reverend Joseph Lowry, I thought had a fascinating mix between a message of politics and a message of religion. On the religious side, he talked about ceremony versus sacrament. On the political side, he took a swipe at President George Bush, but in the same breath, he complimented Condoleezza Rice and about how he sort of coaxed her into a situation into endorsing renewing the Voting Rights Act. So we saw a lot of humor here as well.
And Reverend Sharpton called us lazy, basically, you know, because we haven't gone out and followed in her footsteps, you know, and he was a fiery speech.
Oh, yes, he was.
He'll call us anything he chooses to. He calls it like it is. That's Al Sharpton.
We're watching again. This is 7 Mile, and I don't know the cross street right now, unfortunately, but it's not very far up 7 Mile from the Greater Grace Temple. The caisson has stopped now. There were people walking. I'm going to guess what's happening here is the original group of mourners walking behind the caisson, the official party of mourners. At this point, they use this as a staging area. It looked like the limousines all pulled up, and those people then got into the limousines for the trip, because there's obviously no way all of these people are going to walk 10 miles to the cemetery. That'd be quite a walk in tonight. But look at this. Chopper 7 showing us a tremendous shot. There's Greater Grace right there where that long limousine is sticking through the road right there, stretching. I don't know how far would you say that is? It's already close to a half mile or so.
And all of this for a quiet spoken woman who changed the world, and she never fired a shot. She never raised an arm in anger against anyone. And that was a high compliment of respect from Bobby Bright, the mayor of Montgomery.
Governor Granholm had an interesting analogy she used as her metaphor this entire time, the soldier, and how Rosa Parks was a soldier leading an army, and how her weapons were her conviction. And she defeated an army of people armed with guns and nightsticks and outdated beliefs.
And the other thing that Granholm said that got a lot of applause and hit home with a lot of people was talking about this bus that we've shown pictures of throughout the years, the original bus that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on, that's now at Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village, and talking about how ironic it is, but what a sweet victory it is that that bus is now in Dearborn, which many years ago had its own racial problems under Mayor Hubbard and was a real sore spot with many African Americans in the city of Detroit. Dearborn has come a long way since then too, but she took that historical significance and put it into perspective for that bus to now be sitting in a museum in Dearborn. Got a lot of applause there.
And we're watching right now, real quick, I'm going to interrupt you there, Diana. They're now moving the coffin out of the caisson into the hearse, so the trip will be quicker. Let's go to Mary Conway, who's standing down there very, very near that spot. Mary?
Absolutely, Stephen. And as you are watching that picture, I want you to hear from some of the people that have spent the entire day here inside the service. Tell me, what was the most moving part for you?
The most moving part for me was the power that was in the service. To know that this one woman of such little stature had so much strength, and she stood for something. Well, she sat for something. You know, she was just a magnificent person. It was beautiful, beautiful experience to be there. And I'm so glad I came. I started not to, but at the last minute I came, and I'm so glad I came. It's a moment of a lifetime.
And you made friends on your way walking in.
Yes, we did.
Well, and tell me, ma'am, what stood out for you?
It was a beautiful, beautiful service. The church did a beautiful job of paying homage to Ms. Parks. There were a lot of wonderful speakers, and it was very inspirational. It was very inspirational, and it did a lot for me to come here. I started not to come myself. I'm glad I came. We waited a long time, waited all day. It was very cold this morning, but it was worth it because what she did for me made my life a lot different. If she hadn't done what she did, my life would be a lot different, and I'm glad I came.
Okay, thank you so much. What about you? Tell me why you wanted to be here, why it meant so much.
History was made today. Today, we watch history get celebrated. Rosa Parks was a big part of history. She has done a lot for me personally. She made it possible for me to be able to get a ride to school, go to an all-white school, being a black person. She made it possible for me to be able to go to college. So, really, Rosa Parks, I was just here to praise Rosa Parks and to give thanks to her for giving me the opportunity to make it, and I just want to thank her.
And as you stand here, and even listening to some of the other people talk about how moving today has been for them.
With me, it was just the serenity of looking at her casket and how warmth and peace illuminated around that casket. And it was just awesome, awesome. As I was coming out 94 this morning, the sunrise was coming up, and it was bright orange, but it was silent. It was so silent and gorgeous.
Just some voices from the crowd as you watch that beautiful scene as it unfolds down 7 Mile. Back to you.
All right, Mary, thanks. Again, the casket of Rosa Parks has now been transferred from the caisson to a 1940 LaSalle that transported her from the Charles H. Wright Museum this morning to Greater Grace, and now it will apparently take her the rest of the way. Now, I don't know if this was the plan all along or if this was a contingency they decided to go with because of the late hour, but now, as you can see, a cavalry of types. And we saw these gentlemen behind us on the horses a little while ago.
And it's all beautiful.
The whole thing, everything they've done is just tremendous. Beautiful. I mean, there's just no way that they have made a misstep on this entire procession.
This entire day has been an absolute powerful show of love and support for Rosa Parks. A powerful show of love and support. People are out there like it's early in the afternoon, and I wanted to get back just briefly to Jennifer Granholm because we must wrap it up with her signing off when she said, on behalf of the state of Michigan, ma'am, we are reporting for duty. I just thought that saluted it. I applaud the governor for that because we are definitely on board.
And, you know, we should probably note for the record in a 6-hour-long funeral that the shortest remarks were by Bill Lucy, who was president of the Black Trade Unionists. Short, sweet, to the point, but just as powerful as anybody who took their time to take their message. We saw a real array of messages here, and everybody did it in their own style. And then Congressman John Conyers noting the fact that it took 15 years to get Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday passed through Congress, and it took one day to get Congress to sign on to a special tribute to Rosa Parks. What a difference.
What a difference. And I kind of enjoyed Bishop Ellis. He would stand up, you know, when they would continue to speak.
He had the toughest job in the house.
Would stand up like, let me give you a little cue here. It's time to wrap it up. No one paid any attention. I think the spirit was so high in there, you just went on with whatever you wanted to say in honor and the memory of Rosa Parks.
That's the very special tribute on the city buses that Stephen talked about earlier, the special messages on the marquee in memory of Rosa Parks. Very special tribute by the Detroit buses.
We see a bicycle racing along beside the procession right now, getting a pretty decent view. And we also see the horses, which are apart. Look at them galloping down the street to keep up with this procession. And we certainly hope the streetlights are working along the route because it certainly helps us see what's going on. But as you can see from these pictures, there are people lining 7 Mile as far as we've gone so far. The crowd has continued to stand there. And you can only wonder, you know, how long they stand there. As some people obviously watching our coverage and deciding, hey, if I get out there right now, I can probably see something going by.
We're going to go to Anu Prakash now and see who Anu has talked to about this honorable day for Rosa Parks. Anu?
Well, Diana and Stephen, it's really been incredible to be out here along 7 Mile Road all day long for hours. People have been lining this street waiting for this to happen. Some people have been here as early as 11 o'clock. Ma'am, you came here at 11?
Yes, ma'am.
Talk to me about why you wanted to be here.
To represent the women in the United States.
What are your feelings about Rosa Parks, and why did you want to see this?
This is very beautiful just to represent on my behalf and other women in the world.
Ma'am, you were also here at 11 o'clock?
No, I got here about 12.
12.
Yes. I walked from Schaefer and 6 Mile up to here. I went and saw her last night. I was in line for 4.5 hours. But I just felt that I had to come and pay my respects to her. She paved the way for a lot of not only black people, but people in general. So I just had to be here to see.
And what do you think of this? Look at this. There are so many people here. They're holding signs. They're cheering for her. They've lit their candles. How does this make you feel seeing this?
Proud and excited, because when I first came up, there weren't that many people. So I'm happy to see that they did come out to pay respect to her. She deserves every bit of this and more.
Stephen and Diana, there are also a lot of children here who have come here with their parents, with their friends. You two came here as well. Talk to me about why you're here. You came with your mom. I talked to you guys earlier. Why are you here?
I'm here to represent, and I just think me and my brother should truly be here. She was a great woman, so we need to represent her.
And what about you? You came here also with your brother.
At first, I really didn't want to come, but my mom made me, and now I really do want to be here because I want to represent Rosa Parks and all the good things that she done.
As we take a look at the street again, waiting for the hearse to come by. Also, you brought your children here.
Yes,
come over here, talk to me. Tell me, when did you get here, and why did you feel it was so important to have them witness this?
Well, I think it's very important, you know, to teach our children as best we know how, educate them, teach them morals and values, and educate them the best we know how. And what's the best way to educate them is to show them a piece of living history. So now when they look into their history books, you know, they can identify and recognize, you know, these things did really happen, and it's not just a story, you know, and also to teach them integrity and to stand up for what you believe in. Fight for the wrongs, you know, you fight for the wrongs and celebrate the rights.
And what do you make of this? This must say so much about Rosa Parks just to see this outpouring here.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But it will be a disgrace if each and every one of us don't take this back home and do something with it. There's no need to just to be out here to celebrate her life if we don't get anything from it. We need to do something with it.
Thank you. And we all know that Rosa Parks really adored children and really wanted them to live up to their fullest potential. Young lady here, what time did you get here?
About 7:30, 7:45.
Why did you want to be here today?
I wanted to see Rosa Parks and see the people who celebrate her and how they like her and see how much she celebrated.
At this point, the police are making sure that all of the people who have lined the streets are really staying back. They've started to spill on into the road because they really want to get close to the hearse and see this as this all happens. There are so many people here. Again, some of them are holding balloons. They want to release them into the air as the hearse goes by. People have made signs. Again, some people came here as early as 9, 10, 11 o'clock this morning. They weren't able to go get into the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History yesterday to see Rosa Parks there. They were not able to get into the Greater Grace Temple for the funeral, so they thought, we have to be here. We have to be part of history as this happens. We have to pay tribute to this wonderful, incredible woman. So they came here. And as you can see the lights are flashing right now. And it looks like the hearse is making its way closer to our area. We are right along 7 Mile near Evergreen Road. And ma'am, right here, you are from Arkansas. When did you get here and why did you want to make this trip?
Because I feel that Rosa Parks represented all of us from the south to the north, and I just wanted to come and give her the honor and the praise for what she has done. And a lot of our Arkansas people couldn't make it here, but I'm representing everybody just to give her the honor, the praise, and the glory that she deserved.
Thank you very much. And again, we're seeing the hearse make its way closer to where we are here on 7 Mile Road. Ma'am, I talked to you earlier.
Yes.
You came here with all of your children.
Yes,
how many?
Children,
5?
5 children, and my mom is here now. So it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. This is something that we wouldn't want to miss. And it's just so wonderful to have my family here and to enjoy and experience this moment. Oh, this is just, oh my goodness.
This is emotional, isn't it,
yes,
for you?
Is.
This
yes.
is what you were waiting
We've been
for,
waiting
and
for
it's
this for so long. And here's here's the baby girl. She knows all about Mama Rosa Parks.
I know you're crying. Tell me a little bit about what you're feeling as this is making its way down the processional's coming this way.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Here, take the pictures. Oh, yes. Oh, let's go back now. Get back. Back it up. Come on.
Horses take all that.
Wow, what a moment. So many people are here really in tears. You can see they've released balloons into the air. They're holding their candles. Ma'am, come right here. You have been waiting all day for this moment. What was that like for you?
Overwhelming. It's just a feeling I cannot describe. I'm touched. I feel very strong. I feel like I'm just filled with love and courage. I can do anything I want to do. You know, I just have a lot of strength from this. And then to have my family here, my mother that wasn't allowed to go skating because she was black. You know, she's here with me, and we're all enjoying this. And I don't know, I'm really...
Just overwhelmed.
Yes, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, what an experience. I'm glad you got to share it with your family, and thanks for joining us.
No, you're welcome.
Stephen and Diana, this is really just a sample of what we've really heard from so many people here. All of these people not wanting to miss this moment. Again, have been here for hours, coming with their family and friends, and this is what they were waiting for. Back to you.
And just smile, Anu, when I heard you talking to the little boy who said, you said, well, what did you think? Why are you here today? He said, well, my mom made me. And sitting there being a mom, of all the things mom will make you do today, ladies and gentlemen, was a must. And we were sitting there, Stephen, saying, look, we're responding to the little kids we saw sleeping actually on the benches in the church, in the pews, and it said that's okay. Let them sleep because they're there. That their parents made sure that they were there, and to me that's historical within itself.
The hearse carrying the body of Rosa Parks has now passed Evergreen on 7 Mile, and we're seeing it's accompanied by a mounted color guard, as it were, the horses. And a moment ago, Anu talked about the balloons being released by the people along the route, and apparently it looked like one of the horses was spooked by the balloons, jumped over and actually ran into that hearse that's behind the hearse carrying the body of Rosa Parks, but everything appears to be okay, but it did look like a minor collision there.
Gorgeous.
That hearse is beautiful. Look at that, Chuck.
And look at all the people holding candles or flashlights or something. I'm not sure. There's a lot of light coming from their hands, so I'm not sure what it is they're holding in their hands, but certainly a lot of light, the balloons going up and the flashes going off. I mean, this is, you know, we in the media can get a little jaded sometimes by events that we cover, but this one I can just guarantee I'm going to remember for so long, as I know you will, Diana and Chuck. Yes, it's just one of these things that the people standing along there will be telling their great-grandchildren about the day Rosa Parks went by.
And Val Clark was just saying, she's been with us all day, of course, and very helpful. She was saying that hearse is so gorgeous, and at night in particular, it just looks like a beacon.
So what you're watching right now, the funeral ended just about an hour ago at 6 o'clock, or slightly after 6 o'clock. It was about a 6-hour-long funeral. ending at about 6, and it's taken them about an hour to get things together. Originally, Rosa Parks left the Greater Grace Temple in a caisson, an 1840s hand-milled caisson led by 2 Percheron draft horses. A little way up 7 Mile, they stopped the procession, and they moved the casket to that 1940 LaSalle hearse. It is on the way now to Woodlawn Ceremony, where Rosa Parks will be entombed in a mausoleum of sorts, and then to very near where her husband and mother are buried. Later on, her husband and mother will be removed from that location and placed in that tomb with Rosa Parks. And so what we're watching now is, I don't know, maybe half an hour to the cemetery or less.
You know, so much history has been made in the city of Detroit, and I couldn't help but think about the fact that almost 40 years ago, this is the city that was mentioned earlier where Dr. Martin Luther King first delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. It was tested here before it went to Washington, even though everybody really remembers Washington because of the huge crowd there, but they had 225,000 people here in Detroit, and once he did it here, he knew that it would be accepted well in Washington. And to think now that this history is being made with Rosa Parks' funeral and the crowd that we see here, it has really come full circle.
And coming full circle, the dream was in large part inspired by Rosa Parks.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because Martin Luther King was a very young minister at the time and was not battle-tested, as it were. Rosa Parks made her stand setting up the bus boycott in Montgomery, and it was Martin Luther King who was basically tapped to come and lead the boycott, and then pretty much the civil rights movement that ballooned from that.
The young minister we knew very little about at that time. And of course, Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, so many young ministers were just catapulted into the spotlight because of Rosa Parks.
And you can't say enough about the presence of Aretha Franklin singing, and when you think about the fact that this was also significant because it was her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, who was one of the key organizers of the march that they had here in Detroit for Dr. Martin Luther King, where he first delivered the "I Have a Dream" speech. So he was an activist himself. So I'm sure that Aretha Franklin thought about that when she was singing before the casket of
It was
Rosa
beautiful
Parks.
too, wasn't it, Chuck? Aretha Franklin loves the city of Detroit. This is home. We have so many stars to reach that prominence and move someplace else. No, this is home. She embraces Detroit. She loves Detroit, and she never hesitates to give of herself. And she was happy today. Did you see her take that microphone and start, just giving some amens along?
Oh, absolutely. And she can sing it only like Aretha sings it. And as you said, she loves this town. She's never left this town. She obviously has the financial means to live anywhere in the world that she would, but anywhere that she could. But she decided this is her home, this is her roots, and she has stayed here. And from time to time, she throws wonderful Christmas parties and other things for this city. And she keeps that significance here for Detroit.
And of course, we had
interrupt real fast.
From New Orleans, she took the victims of the hurricane shopping, if we recall.
Absolutely.
She did that and had a soul food dinner for them. I just wanted to put that in there about Aretha, always giving. Yes, Stephen?
I didn't want to interrupt that, but we're seeing something that has happened here. They've hit a portion of the street that has not been closed down, so now the funeral procession is suddenly finding itself mixing with regular traffic, and a couple of cars have gotten caught in the middle of this, so it's slowing things down, but you can see it. People are still lining the streets, and I'll get a reading on a cross street here very shortly, but we're still on 7 Mile heading to Woodlawn.
And we have reporters along the route. Action News reporters have been last night, today, all day, and all through the evening. We have your Michael Rosenfields, and we have Dave Llewellyn, and we have our Glenda Lewis once we get there, standing right outside the gates on Woodward Avenue. But right now, let's go to Michael Rosenfield. Mike?
Good evening, you guys. We are at Livernois and Pembroke, about halfway on Livernois between 7 Mile and 8 Mile. And if you look behind me, that's where the procession eventually will make its way north up to 8 Mile and then hang a right over to Woodward and then backtrack down south back to the cemetery. Dozens of people are really gathering by the second out here. People must be watching this on TV because as more people, as we understand the procession should be nearing, more and more people keep arriving. This is the outside of New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church, where I can tell you people have been lining up since this morning. At 7:30 a.m., the first group of people started arriving here with those white balloons. They plan on releasing them once the procession makes its way through. That is their tribute to Mrs. Rosa Parks. And with me out here is Reverend Johnson from New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church. Tell me about this tribute and how you guys came up with the white balloons and the ribbons.
Well, I wanted to pay honor to her because of the debt that she paid, and New Prospect is a bright light in the community, and so that's why I came up with the white balloons and the white ribbons. And we also have lights because we owe her a debt. I mean, we can go places, we can sleep in hotels, we can eat in restaurants now that we could not have done before if it had not been for her passionate courage. So we just want to let her know we love her and we thank her, and we'll never let her memory die.
And that's really wonderful to hear. Can I speak with some of these church members right behind you? Let's talk real quickly about this tribute, the white balloons, the ribbons. You guys will release these balloons. What does Rosa Parks mean to you and to your fellow church members out here?
Rosa Parks is a great freedom fighter, aside from being a Christian and a seamstress, and just one who stood up at the right time, because we needed somebody like this to come along at the time that she did to show the way for us. And we love her, and we are just elated to be here. And this is not an ending. This is a beginning, because all of this outpouring of humanity and the love that's being shown will be remembered and carried on. And I'm sure a new energy is going to emerge from this. That's what I feel about this.
Very well said. Thank you. Ma'am, what's it like to be out here with really dozens of people arriving every second here? What's it like to be out here and part of the crowd?
It's phenomenal. And it just shows how much we love Mrs. Parks and what an impact she had on our lives. A lot of people here weren't even born when this was happening. I wasn't, but because of her, I'm able to drink from water fountains, to ride on the front of the bus, to attend colleges, to do everything I do now and sometimes take for granted. But it's wonderful to see the outpouring of love from everyone here, and I hope it continues on after this.
What will be going through your head, do you think, when the procession actually goes right by this intersection?
The greatness that is riding in that procession and the awesomeness of her character, which brought us all out here today.
Thank you so much. Stephen and Diana, this has been a real gathering place all day today. I can tell you that earlier, there's an elementary school that's just about a block away. It's called Pastor Elementary School. The principal brought all of the students out here at around 2:30, 3 o'clock. They were hoping the funeral would be a little bit quicker than it was, and that they would get to see the procession itself. They were out here with their signs, and they had a very special tribute. Unfortunately, they had to leave because school was ending for the day. But what they did instead, they waited for a city bus to drive by and then saluted that city bus. And that was their way to pay tribute to Mrs. Parks, even though they couldn't be here in person to see the funeral procession go by. And I thought that was really neat to see. Let me speak to a couple more church members out here and people who have gathered out here at Livernois and Pembroke as we await the arrival of the procession. Ma'am, you got a good seat out here. What's it like to be out here?
It's wonderful. It's an honor just to be out here and just to recognize the lady that has stood up and created equal rights for everybody. So it's a beautiful thing.
What does she mean to you, your fellow church members, and your family?
Just an inspiration of hope that, you know, all of us can live peacefully, without color, without regard to race or creed, and just be as one as we ought to be.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Just down the block, there's something called the Avenue of Fashion Business District, and they put out a large sign that the procession will go by in just a little bit here, and it simply says, "Thank you, Mrs. Parks." And I spoke with members of that organization earlier today. They said they had this great big banner, and they thought for days what they should write on it. And eventually they said, well, the simplest thing is really the best thing. Thank you, Mrs. Parks. So there's a big banner that the procession will see, and that's from the Avenue of Fashion Business District. They said that's the best way to honor her, is to simply say thank you. I've got a young child out here who's with me at this intersection out here. What's going through your head right now?
Well, I'm thankful that she sat on the bus, because if she didn't stand up, other black people wouldn't stand up for rights. If it wasn't for her, we'd still be sitting in the back of the classroom. We wouldn't even, we'd still be in the back of the bus. We wouldn't be we would still be separate. We wouldn't be united as one altogether.
I know at Pastor Elementary School, which I said is just down the block, they make Mrs. Rosa Parks a part of their education. In fact, she's displayed prominently on a mural there, so definitely touches the lives of many children. Ma'am, can I talk to you real quick? What's going on through your head right now? So many people showing up here at this intersection to really be part of this historic event.
Yes, it's a wonderful, wonderful celebration of a well-deserved icon. I grew up in Alabama, so I can identify with all of the things that Rosa Parks stood for. I had to go to the fountains where it said colored, and I watched my family fight for civil rights, and I'm just so very, very proud of Rosa Parks. And I like what they said today, that one person can make a difference, and I'm going to strive to even do better and to make that difference.
Okay, thanks so much. So we're still awaiting the arrival of the procession out here on Livernois between 7 Mile and 8 Mile. Stephen and Diana, we'll send it back to you for the time being.
Stand pat there. We're going to come back to you in a couple of minutes. I wanted to ask Diana a question. In all the years you've lived in Detroit, have you ever seen anything like this?
Nothing.
A white hearse going down the middle of 7 Mile in the dark of night with thousands of people lining the streets, balloons flying in the air.
It's heartwarming.
Horses.
I have not seen anything like this. Chuck and I were talking about it. And when we get to the cemetery, we're going to have 50 doves released.
That's what the plan was. Now, whether doves fly in the night, I'm not sure. Whether we'll see them fly,
I think
we're
about to find out. We're going to find out here in a minute.
We're going to find out. 50 doves
But
released
no,
into
I've
the
never seen
air.
anything like this, Stephen. I'm just honored to be a part of this historical event. I just feel special. I feel warm. We feel united. It's a wonderful feeling.
We're someplace around Greenfield, by the way, on 7 Mile.
About
we may have
halfway
just,
there.
Yeah, almost to it there. So it'll be turning very shortly. Chuck?
And you know, maybe the Swanson Funeral Home knew more than we realized by having all of those cars be white instead of black. Can you imagine what they would look like, black cars this time of night? So by having them white, they stand out a little better. And it's just amazing video for this time of night to be able to see as clearly as we can see the horses.
By the way, we're down to 3 horses. I think we started off with 5 or 6, and now we're down to 3. So I'm not sure if it's just the hardiest of them or
I'm
what.
not sure. One may be taking a little break. Beautiful horses.
The horses just look militaristic. They're so well trained. They're mannerable. The horses have manners.
This is just,
it's amazing. It is amazing.
People after people.
It's beautiful. It really is a powerful show of love, respect, and support.
And people standing out, look at this, they've actually stopped traffic, and people are standing in amongst the cars now on the side of the road, so the cars have obviously stopped and waited there for a while. You know, and every once in a while people get very lucky because the procession slows down for some reason or another, and suddenly people have a much better view. But we've been watching them release the balloons into the air, and I didn't get the balloon memo, but I guess somebody sent one out because a lot of people showed up with balloons. We've seen both white and red.
This looks like just, you know, a crowd of people waiting for the parade tomorrow. You know, let's go get our seats the night before. No, it's happening. It's been happening all day, and it's happening right now. These are people knowing what time it is. They've been here all day long, and they don't care. They just don't care. They feel so good. Their dignity, their pride, they feel so good. And today, I applaud the Detroit Public Schools at 11 a.m. when the service was scheduled to start. They took a pause. So the students paused, and they had activities. They learned more about Rosa Parks. I just thought that was wonderful.
This week has been just an amazing outpouring of patience, of people. I was in Washington as they started lining up for the monument, the memorial in the rotunda, and they were lining up 12 hours before she was going to be there. And I asked one of the first people in line. I said, you know, you're going to be here for a while. And she said, that's okay. It's worth it. She said, Rosa Parks, you know, stood up for me. I can certainly stand here a few hours for her. And we've seen that repeated over and over in Montgomery. We've seen it as people lined up in the rain here in Detroit on Monday night when Rosa Parks returned from Washington, D.C. We're seeing it tonight, the people who've been standing out since early morning to get into Greater Grace, the people who are standing out there now tonight, waiting for a hearse to pass by. I mean, it's just her ability to continue to motivate people is just, it's lifting.
And you never know how people are going to be touched and how history will play out. At one point, Dr. Martin Luther King was quoted as saying he never thought the bus boycott would last more than a week.
Right.
He was a young minister and a little naive at that time, but he probably didn't realize just how sick people were of being discriminated against. And then, of course, it lasted 381 days. And what ironically made the bus boycott a large success was when they printed up the flyers saying don't ride the buses anymore. The white community in Montgomery thought this was a joke, and so they published it in the major dailies.
Thus spreading the word.
Therefore, it went into every home in Montgomery, and people who may not have gotten the message before suddenly got the message, and it really became a success. So that's probably something in hindsight they wouldn't do again.
Was it Reverend Sharpton who pointed out today that in that day they had no email, they had no cell phones, they had no websites,
no Blackberries.
Word had to get around. However, it got around, as you said, that was a rather unusual way to do it. But you know, these days you can motivate people in an instant through what we're doing here. Just the fact we're on television right now. People have watched this all day. They are, as Michael Rosenfield pointed out, actually rushing out as they see the procession coming closer. So we can obviously spread this word much faster. And the admonition from the Reverend Sharpton was, well, you can do all that, so why don't you?
Point well taken.
This was really a very special time for Channel 7 Action News. we have our cameraman, Nate Penn, the only cameraman who was invited by the family to actually videotape the entire events, just chronicle everything for the Rosa and Raymond Parks Foundation. And I just can't wait. And Nate's been busy. He's right there working since early this morning. I can't wait until we sit down with Nate Penn and talk about his experience and what this means to him, because we have a Nate Penn, a photographer at Channel 7, who's in the history books because of this. He goes down in history.
We just haven't had much of a chance to talk with him. I managed to hook up with him very briefly at the Capitol on Monday, and take some of the tapes so we could bring them back. Val Clark has had a chance to talk with him briefly, and she's looked over some of the tapes. But it's incredible footage of this historic trip from the eyes of the family and the friends who've been making this voyage on the airplanes as they left Detroit, as they flew into Montgomery, as they stood in the rotunda when nobody else was in there. So, I mean, it was before the public and during points where the public couldn't see. He's back there with all these moments, and what we will be working on, what he'll be working on, is putting all this together into really an historical time capsule into the behind the whole picture, the whole story of what has happened here. You'll see things you've just never seen before.
I meant to tease you about this, too. Nate Penn told me by phone that they thought you were a Secret Service. Were you down there playing the FBI partner?
Well,
he said, I don't know how Stephen Clark got in. He's a big guy. He had his sunglasses on, and he looked just like one of the FBI. How did you get in and get that tape?
In all frankness, it's an old trick. I act like I knew where I was going, and I walked right out of the Capitol and ended up right there standing.
Stephen walked right in. He looked up, Stephen, you're here.
Let's go to Michael Rosenfield, who's standing by right now again. You're at Livernois between 8 and 7 Mile. Is that correct, Michael?
Right at Livernois and Pembroke, right smack dab in between 7 Mile and 8 Mile. We're still waiting for the procession. This road is open to regular traffic. Certainly, indeed, a lot of people out here really enjoying being part of this moment in history. And something I heard over and over again today is that people just wanted to see history pass right before their eyes. I've got a lot of people out here. This intersection is jam-packed, all four corners. More and more people continue to arrive. I've got some high school students with me. What does this moment mean to you?
Well, it's amazing to see all these people gather together, because before she did all this, we didn't have this. We couldn't go to the mall together. We couldn't shop or anything. And she made, she's a hero to me now.
Tell us do you learn about Rosa Parks in school?
Yes. Every, February or on our chapters and everything, they talk about Rosa and the difference she has made.
You're also in high school. Tell me about what Rosa Parks means to you.
I just think it's wonderful that all these people care so much about her to come out and celebrate her life. And I just think it's just amazing that all the impact that she made across the whole world, not even just for African Americans, but for all races. And I just think that's great.
And is it different watching this on TV and being out here in person?
Yes,
what's it like to be out here in person for people who can't be out here?
It's a great experience, and I'll probably remember it forever. And
I'm gonna tell my kids.
Certainly something you will never forget.
Yeah.
It's nice to be a part of history.
Yeah.
We've got some younger students here too, an elementary school child. And what's it like to be out here for you?
It's fun, and just to come out here to celebrate someone who's changed the way of life for Black people in America. So it's
What's your name?
Taylor.
And where do you go to school?
Bates Academy.
And do you learn about Mrs. Parks in school?
Yes.
Nobody do it like you. Good lessons.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sure you're going to share this moment with your classmates.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. We've got some adults here, too. Can we speak to you real quickly? Mrs. Parks, what did she mean to you?
Ooh.
Tough question. Easy question, hard answer.
Right. She was remarkable lady in my life. I was 12 years old when all this came about, and it was just tremendous.
What do you teach your children, grandchildren, whoever, friends, young people about Mrs. Parks?
Well, Mrs. Parks? Well, I teach them about the civil rights and what happened back in those days and stuff, and to really take heed and to look at what it meant, what's happening today, that, it's freedom today because of her.
Okay, well, thank you so much. People out here at New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church, some of these people have been out here since early this morning, since 7:30 or so, placing these white balloons and ribbons, not just on their church, but really on all the buildings surrounding this intersection. This is really a neighborhood effort. This is their tribute to Mrs. Parks, and once this procession comes through, they plan on releasing these balloons into the air. And you can hear people are now just starting to sing. Still haven't seen the procession yet, so we'll talk to a few more people as we await. And I think they're getting close, but we've got a couple seconds here. Man, what's it like to be a part of this moment in history?
Sure. Oh, well, it goes back to my days in Mississippi, and I just thank God that I was able to live and witness it, and I benefited so from what Rosa did.
What's it like to be out here in person?
Oh, it's just history making. It's something that I'll probably never be able to do again in my lifetime, and she just did so much, and she deserves all the respect that we can give, and this is just my last way of doing that for her.
What do you hope the younger people who might be watching on TV or are here in person learn about Mrs. Parks and remember about her?
That one person can make a difference, and when you feel that there's a need for you to speak up, if you have to be the only one to speak up, don't hesitate.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Ma'am, what's your name?
Elizabeth Gary.
What's it like for you to be out here tonight on this special night?
It's just awesome to be out here on this special night. When she sat down on that bus, I was 10 years old. And when I just look back, it's just an awesome thing because I think of my parents. So my parents had to go through. I think about what my grandfather had to go through. And I just think about all the things that used to happen back in the 50s and all of that. And just to see a person would be brave enough to sit down, you know, they took it up on themselves. They didn't worry about what anybody else said or did. They did it for themselves. And I think it's just an awesome thing.
Certainly a different world today, but we still have a long way to go.
Yes, we have a long ways to go now. We still have to really educate our children and let our children know of the things that happened before. To let them know that we were not always able to get all the things that we have now. We were not able to live in the neighborhoods that we're living in now. And it's to let our children know that things have not always been this way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The crowds continue to gather out here at the intersection of Livernois and Pembroke. Let me speak with the Reverend one more time while she's out here. Reverend, you've been so gracious to have us out here with you tonight. For all the people watching at home who can't be a part of this in person, what's it like to be out here?
This is very electrifying. There's so much power out here. I mean, Mother Rosa Parks had the power to live, the power to love, the power to serve. What a lady. It is just magnificent out here. And it will live on. It's something that's in our hearts. It's in our bones, it's in our blood. And so we thank God for Mother Rosa Parks, and we're going to make a greater difference because of her life.
And have you made Rosa Parks a part of your church services here in recent days?
In recent days, yes. I asked the church, let us line up Livernois, all the New Prospects property, and that's where it started, and it just developed into the whole community. And that's what we want to be. We're a church in the community.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to step out onto the street real quick just to see if I can get a glimpse down the road here. I see some sirens maybe a couple blocks away. Not sure if that's the beginning of the procession or not. It could be. This procession will make its way up through the intersection here at Livernois and Pembroke, make its way all the way up to 8 Mile, hang a right on 8 Mile to Woodward, and then backtrack down to the cemetery. So this is sort of the tail end, or the home stretch, if you will, of the procession once it actually gets here. Let's send it back to Stephen and Diana real quick.
Okay, Michael, we'll see if we can help get a bearing on where things are. Dennis Newbacher's in Chopper 7. Dennis, can you give us an idea of where everybody is and in relation to where Michael is, for instance?
The hearse is about halfway in between Wyoming and Livernois now, and it's obviously moving east toward Livernois, making the turn and going north. But the impressive thing is, as you've already mentioned, are the crowds that have lined 7 Mile all the way from where it began near the church to this point here, and of course up along Livernois as well. And in some spots you'll see the candle vigils as well, and people waving, and lots of balloons coming up in the air too. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that, obviously, from our vantage point. But it sure is something to see the crowds. I haven't seen crowds like this lining up for a funeral since Mayor Coleman Young's funeral a number of years ago, and this is quite impressive to see all these folks out along 7 Mile here, and they're about ready to get to Livernois here in just a few minutes, a few more blocks to go, and they'll be at Livernois making a turn and heading north toward Michael Rosenfield.
Yeah, do us a favor if you can, Dennis, and just give us a shot back down that line. It's just a huge line of people behind there, and I don't want to leave the hearse for too long there as we watch, but I mean, this just gives people an idea. It's a very long parade of buses,
goes
limos.
on
Look how far this is going. How far does that stretch, Dennis?
Extends past Wyoming, almost back to the area of Myers, not quite back to the Lodge Freeway. So that's at least a mile, mile and a half.
Okay, Dennis Newbacher, what we're going to do is when we turn onto Livernois and we'll start heading towards Michael Rosenfield's position, we can check back in with him. We saw patiently the people waiting for the procession to pass them up as it comes up there. And again, the Coleman Young funeral, was it this big?
It was big. I can't recall just how it compared in sizes, but it was extremely long processional, and it went on for miles and miles, and it was attended heavily all the way from the African American History Museum all the way to the cemetery, from the church, and it was several days of outpouring of goodwill from Detroiters and from people who came from other states and other cities because he was in office for so long and he was so well loved, particularly by the people of the city of Detroit. 20 years in office is the longest serving mayor this city has ever had. Diana, you mentioned earlier, and I thought it was so appropriate talking about Nate Penn, our photographer. Yes. Let me give you another little piece of trivia history that the audience can't see at home. But Earl Watkins, who is our chief photographer, they've heard us talk about Doris Biscoe and Val Clark going to Montgomery, but it was Earl Watkins who was the photographer, and he's here with us in studio, so 20 years of history here.
20 years of history.
Let's listen in for a second. This is the people, the crowd waiting for the hearse to approach them.
This is what it's all about. We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand.
There's an unscripted moment. It's just the people standing along the streets breaking into him. Now the hearse and the procession have turned onto Livernois, and it's going to take a while for all of them to do so, as we saw from the chopper a moment ago. The line strings back a mile or so.
It was an unscripted day, December 1st, 1955, when Rosa Parks just sat down and refused to move. It seems like our most memorable moments, our most heartfelt moments, are those that are unscripted.
Michael Rosenfield standing by just ahead of where we are now. So, Michael, it's coming at you now.
Stephen, at this point, hundreds and hundreds of people are out here at this intersection of Livernois and Pembroke, and you might be able to see the whole crowd of people has just moved from the sidewalk into the middle of the street. And you can certainly tell that the procession is getting closer with the buzz of all the chopper activity above as well. Speaking of unscripted moments, people are breaking out in song here, singing Amen. There you can see the beginning of the procession here with all the police officers. And so many people have just flooded onto the street behind me, and you can see up above in front of us too, a lot of people have just left the sidewalk and trying to get as close as possible to the procession as it just starts to make its way to this intersection.
Now let me see past it. Right there.
I see it right there.
As we get closer and closer here, what's it like to be out here? So exciting.
Oh, this is just wonderful. I mean, not only will we say, there Mother Rosa Parks goes, but here Mother Parks comes. And we're going to keep her alive by joining the NAACP, joining the